So you don't have to be from a family lined with PhDs, with advanced degrees in order to get educated. It just has to be a love for learning and a respect for the process, especially with Google today. I think it causes people to not respect the process. Everyone can go online and summarize what someone else built a lifetime achieving, and then they believe that they have a command and a mastery of that same thing
Mm.
due to the 5 minutes that they read on Google.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in our Black communities and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. So, as you guys see on the screen, for those of you who are watching the video podcast, I have a dope brother that I actually met through IG. So we didn't officially meet, right? But he saw my work. I saw his work, and it was just like, wow, man, this brother is doing some amazing things. Okay, so I am here to introduce Mr. Abu Hudhayfah Edwards. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, indeed.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, indeed. And so, what I would like to do, I am going to let everybody know, give them the bio that you sent me. Very impressive. And this is something that our audience members they need to hear. All right. So, Abu Hudhayfah Edwards is an author of Islamic children's books dedicated to amplifying the voices and experiences of young Muslims living in the USA, Caribbean, and Canada. As the creator of WKTL Radio, also known as Islam Life Radio and Medina Educational Institute, he channels his passion for education and community into engaging stories that reflect the cultural styles and realities of Muslim youth. Once featured in Style Weekly in the article After These Messages, where he was described as stoic and deep thinking. Abu Hudhayfah Edwards continues to write with purpose and vision, committed to ensuring that Muslim children see themselves represented in the books they read. Come on, y'all. This brother, I was like, I'm reading this, I'm like, dang, he just hitting them up. I just want to give you your flowers right now. I am just super proud of you, loving the work that you are doing in the community. And without further ado, what I would love for you to do, because they need to hear your voice. That's why you're here, right? Your voice is going to be dominant on this episode, okay? So tell everybody about yourself. Give us some background, brother.
Okay. As you mentioned, I am Abu Hudhayfah Edwards. Uh, I'm gonna try to shrink this down because I'm in my 50s, so I have a long story.
Uh-huh.
But alhamdulillah, I was born in the late 1900s, and my first introduction to Islam was actually my parents. My father brought home a Quran when I was young. I wasn't even in middle school. Um, I was born and raised in East Orange, New Jersey, and during that time period, the 70s and 80s, the Muslims came and they just flourished. And there was just something about them that intrigued me and impressed me as a little guy. So, alhamdulillah, the summer of 1989, I went and took Shahada. Uh, Being young, I didn't understand exactly what the Sunnah was. So we were running around not eating pork. Yeah, we Muslim. In those days during Ramadan, no, we don't eat during the day, but I'm thirsty. Let me have some water. But alhamdulillah, in my early adulthood, I went into the military, into the Navy. I was in the CBs where I met a brother who was from Morocco, and he introduced me to the Sunnah. From that point forward, I gradually started learning Quran, not just reading as we would read the Bible, but reading to learn the tafsir, the meaning, the interpretations, learning the Sunnah. And when I finally separated from the Navy, I started working with people, which brought me on this journey to Dawah. Because for me, Dawah isn't just a monolith. Not everyone has to be behind a minbar.
Yeah.
We can do other things such as write books. We can open stores. We can be merchants. We can be chefs and cooks. There are many different ways. So I guess that will wrap me up.
That
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that is an excellent introduction. I definitely appreciate all that. And I love how your introduction, you led everything to the fact of you taking Shahada. And for those of you who are listening, I know you're going to, you'll hear terms. And so we're going to do our best to say what those terms mean. And Shahada is just the declaration of faith. So that is a person's initial step into becoming Muslim. All right. And then he also mentioned the word sunnah. And sunnah is the Arabic word for example. And the example that he's referring to is following the example of our beloved Prophet Muhammad. May peace and blessings of Allah, one God, be upon him. And then, of course, the Quran is the holy book that Muslims read. And he also mentioned the word dawah, which is that is where I'm going to have the segue. Dawah is when you are calling people to the worship of one God, right? Because Islam means submission, okay? Submission, surrender to one God. And for my folks out there who understand about, that God is the center, God is the creator of all, I know that you all can relate. You do not have to be a Muslim to understand all of these things that I explained, because again, what he's talking about is someone who understands that when we know that God is in control of everything, you tend to have a outlook in life of positivity, of hope, right? And it's like you want to spread that hope, you want to share with the world. Okay, and I can relate to, I'm a convert. I became Muslim over 30 years ago, coming up on 33 on February 14th, inshallah. And so I understand what that looks like, right? In terms of being excited about embracing your new faith. And so what I would love for you to do is to take us back to your childhood. So, in terms of the literacy aspect, the reading, what did that look like in your home? Mr. Would you like for me to call you Abu Hudayfah?
Certainly.
Okay, yep. So Abu Hudayfah, yeah, can you just let us know what did that look like for you?
For me, I was a quirky child. Um, I have one of my children is similar to me. As little guys, my parents don't remember it with me, nor do I remember it with him of teaching him how to read. Um, we just kind of read out loud, and everyone in the family knew that we could read. Um, my mother was an avid reader because she came from a family of educators. Uh, Even her grandfather, my great grandfather, was a college educated man, but decided to join the post office. So, regardless of the work, whether it was blue collar or white collar on her side of the family, they were all about education. So, me personally, I was addicted to reading encyclopedias. When most children receive books as gifts, or rather toys, I received books. Um, I would read about dogs and the different type of breeds. I would read about planes, surgery, surgeons. I would read everything I can get my hands on. I spent my afternoons after school in and out of the library, just trying to read and soak in as much as I could. And I even had a little crew of friends that we would go every day and hang out.
Wait, you had a
Um,
crew of friends. Y'all would hang out at the library?
yes. In Roselle, New Jersey, on the corner of Chestnut Street and 4th Avenue.
Oh, wow. That is impressive, amazing. You don't use, I mean, and of course, I'm impressed and amazed because, especially too, you growing up in the city as, African American Black child, especially a boy, y'all gravitating to the library. Come on, we need to, yeah, keep going, brother, keep going.
Uh, well, on that aspect, like I said, there were just certain things I would be fascinated about. I guess now people will call it hyper focus. So once there was a topic that I would see that was interesting, I would just try to learn as much as I could about it. Even when I sat down in front of the television, I would watch shows like Marty Stauffer's Wild America. And then that would start me on a tangent between the encyclopedias and the libraries of trying to learn about the bighorn rams from North America or whatever they were talking about. Even as an adult, I watched engineering shows like How It's Made. My former wife, she wind up becoming an educator herself with a degree in early childhood development and psychology. And even in those books, I would try to read them when she wasn't using them because I figured that would help me in giving doubt, helping to understand people, helping to not center everything around myself, but to try to understand how other people thought, their emotions, their feelings, so that I can better empathize and put myself in their shoes in order to better relate. So even now with the books, the children's books, I probably have the greatest fun of my life, alhamdulillah, because I put myself back into the shoes of 5-year-old me, 10-year-old me, or 14-year-old me, whichever me I have to be in order to get that story out.
Wow, wow. It's almost like you giving like a little mini master class on how to become an author for real, for real. I mean, and just embracing who you are. I mean, I love how the fact when you start off, you said, hey, you were quirky, you're just like, hey, you're just this kid, you just interested in things that it may seem like kind of odd, to other young people or even adults, and especially again, just emphasizing the fact of, you being obviously a boy at the time. And a lot of times, especially here, growing up in America, our boys, in particular, our Black boys, they they tend to, unfortunately, and of course, this is not in all households, but generally speaking, push to things that are more sports. Or then you, of course, had the era, you and I grew up in the same era. I'm 74. Okay. And, understanding, during that time, when, especially too, when rap and hip hop started coming on the scene and all of that, it's like, hey, I want to be a rapper. I want to be an entertainer. Right. But here it is, you're trying to figure out, well, how things work, that methodology, that scientific mindset. And that right there, that's commendable and that's dope. And that's what's up. That's why I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. And so now, what I would love to do is I want you to take us through your journey of when you decided to become an author.
I would say in the mid 2000s, meeting a particular group of brothers who everyone decided to get together and take those lessons that we learned. Because unfortunately and fortunately, we were all trying to become students of knowledge. But we were in circumstances to where we were too old to get accepted into universities overseas. A lot of people may not know, but a lot of these universities that we want to go to, Qura, the University of Medina, you actually have to have the same standards that you do for regular universities. They're not going to take you if you're a high school dropout. Uh, they're going to first select those who finished undergraduate degrees, whether it's a bachelor's or an associate's. So when me and that group of brothers we came together, one of those brothers, he wound up calling me the problem solver. So we would sit down in the think tank and decide on what we were going to try to do. And my job was to assess what we were trying to do and figure out how to get things going, how to get them started. And that's how we came across the MEI, Medina Educational Institute. And that was pretty much, it was an online university. One of the people who was with us was actually the head of the history department at the University of Central Florida, uh, Saiful Islam Abdul Ahad. So between him and two brothers who were students at UCF, we came together and figured out how to build the infrastructure for online university. We first established that. And I think the problem that we found with MEI was we tried to make it so that we solicited donors to pay for the scholarships so that students can come and just learn. But sometimes without that initial sacrifice of paying, people tend not to take it too seriously. So we ultimately moved on to what we call WKTL radio, which was, as you remember growing up, it wasn't just CBS and ABC, it was WCBS, WNBC, WABC. So WKTL, Know the Ledge, which was kind of a street vernacular for knowledge. Eventually, we turned the name over to Islam Life Radio. And what I find myself doing during that time was producing radio shows, writing the scripts for the radio shows. So that kind of stuck with me. I then said to myself, what are we missing? So I created a show called Storytime, which was reading of children's books or having people send in their video footage and we'll put together a video of whatever was happening, whether they were fishing, cooking with the children. We created another show called Muslim Jobs, along with all the other stuff, Quran classes, Hadith classes. And I just found the difficulty in at first trying to fit these ideas to fit in a 30-minute parameter. And I found it challenging, interesting, and fun. So when TikTok came along, I started writing small reels. They call them reels now. I guess before we would call them short videos. And the challenge of trying to fit a full story into 60 seconds, subhanAllah. But I wind up figuring out that I can do this. I can lay down my ideas. I can formulate a story and figure out how to begin it, keep it consistent, create a story arc, and bring it to an end. So once I figured that out, I said, you know what? Let's try writing books. So I actually wrote one in 2013, which was more so a storybook, then an activity book, followed by a more, I would say, teaching book. uh, how to teach your children to respect the masjid, the mosque. But my greatest difficulty was illustrators. For me, it was frustrating to find someone who can illustrate the ideas that I had and lay them out in a way that I can use to match the story I was trying to tell, as well as having to depend on them in order to finish what I've started. Like I said, I'm hyper focused. So if I start working on something, I need to finish it. And they may have the same thing. Once they start illustrating, they have to focus on that and finish in their own accord the same way that I do. And then an interesting tool came out, uh, is I can draw some, but not well enough for the books. So what I wind up doing was there's a online school, and I'm not being paid to mention their name, called Udemy. And it taught me different softwares that I can use and manipulate in order to get the illustrations needed to better tell the stories that I was trying to tell. And from there, alhamdulillah, everything just took off.
Wow.
So,
That is, and I love. I'm just going to take it back to when you said you started off with, and I want you to just give a brief definition of when you mentioned students of knowledge, because again we have all types of people from different backgrounds and different faiths who are listening. Can you explain what that is?
a student of knowledge is what we would call someone here in America, someone who goes to study theology. Um, and basically, it's not just religious. Um, in fact, the modern day universities are based on the ijazah system from the Muslim world. So basically, a student of knowledge is someone who begins a path and journey to study. The majority of it will be to study and teach the religion because it's not always just what you can learn in the books, it's also how to live what you learn. It's also being able to relay what you learn. So, Islamically, we have a thing called ijaza. So, you will sit down with the teacher, like myself. I sat down with a few teachers, even a few teachers who I didn't learn the information from themselves. I came to them with the text and books that I read, and I explained to them what I extrapolated or gained from the book. And then he can give me the first part of the ijazah to say that you've read this book and I accept your understanding. I believe that you really have a great understanding of what you read. And then you can explain it to him further, more so like an instructor, and he can give you the second part of the ijazah, which is to be able to teach. And like I said, it's no different than what we do here. We have how many people they go to secondary school, high school, universities, and they will all receive degrees and diplomas saying that they know certain information, but they need added certifications to say that they are also able to teach that information.
Got it. And full disclosure, that is, I've heard of students of knowledge. I knew, what that concept was, because of course, being in the Muslim community. However, the way that you explained it, I've never ever heard it being explained in depth like that. And you explained it in a way that it was relatable to anybody who's listening. And one of the key takeaways that I'm gaining from our conversation is that you were cultivated in a household that valued education, value reading, value getting knowledge. And that right there, it just makes sense that you took this path and you just, it was like you got the baton and you just, you know what I'm saying? And you just ran with it. You're like, hey man, this is my jam. You know, I gravitate to learning, I gravitate to reading, to gaining knowledge. And this is something that is, once again, I love that you being, of course, a Muslim brother, but you are a Black Muslim brother, which is a great example because when you're talking about illiteracy rates in our Black and underserved communities that are in some places, just like here in Cleveland, where I am, you have some neighborhoods where it's like close to 90% of illiteracy. You're talking
Um,
about, fourth graders. You're talking about maybe about 17, 15 to 17% of fourth grade Black children that are proficient in reading. And the studies usually typically show that the Black boys, typically always fall lower as it pertains to literacy in comparison to the girls. So again, your voice needs to be amplified. It's needed, and you are modeling an example of what it takes to be somebody who is an educator. And so I appreciate all of these gems, and shout out to your mom, and being an avid reader, that she is, and you just growing up in that family. And then you said your grandfather being an educator. I mean, so this is really, really, truly great. So, in terms of you, I'm so glad that you entered into the children's space, writing books for our youth. So tell me, what was it? What made you decide to focus on our youth with, you becoming an author?
what made me decide to focus on the youth, it was really manifested in selfishness because I actually have 5 children. So anything that I can do to benefit children on a whole, I know it would help benefit me and my children. We have a saying that it takes a village to raise a child,
African
and
proverb. Mhm.
there's a lot of truth to that. And what better way to get back by putting out first? A lot of us, we talk about reciprocating energy. Well, we should start with ourselves with giving out good energy, and then that good energy will come back. Um, Especially, I know it's you keep mentioning the boys. I know it's tough for boys because culturally, boys are supposed to be rough and tough. Uh, Typically, a boy is not going to be rough and tough if he's carrying a book bag with a bunch of books. As a young child, uh, there were plenty of times where I had to run. There were times where I had to stick up for myself. But I probably had to stick up for myself because I didn't totally fit in with particular crowds. And I even remember in high school when it really settled in to me the postgraduate degrees, because all of our teachers, they were working on masters and PhDs in the classroom. They weren't necessarily teaching us. They were there trying to improve themselves. That also allows our youth to slip between the cracks. And I do want to iterate this thought. Education doesn't have to come from an educated environment. I had grandparents on my father's side who, I won't say that they couldn't read, but they were smart enough to make me read everything for them.
Mm.
So you don't have to be from a family lined with PhDs, with advanced degrees in order to get educated. It just has to be a love for learning and a respect for the process, especially with Google today. I think it causes people to not respect the process. Everyone can go online and summarize what someone else built a lifetime achieving, and then they believe that they have a command and a mastery of that same thing
Mm,
due to the 5 minutes that they read on Google or the 3 volume episode on YouTube that they watched on that particular thing. And they spew opinions, which is fine, but you have to respect the process. As I mentioned, I was in the military, I was in the Seabees as a construction mechanic. And basically, that just meant that I worked on diesel engines. Working on diesel engines, when I wind up going to a ship, I still had a respect for the engineers and the ship mechanics. I didn't believe that I can go in and do what they did. The same as if you're a carpenter could build a house, but the carpenter should allow the electrician to come in and do his work. He better let the plumber come in and do his work because they put the same time into their craft that they put into themselves as a carpenter. You have to respect that process. And there seems to be a lack of that now. And yes, I blame Google. And it causes people like everyone wants to be a jack of all trades, but when you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of nothing. So it's developing a love for the idea of learning as well as the respect, because that respect, the most humble person is the educated person,
mm,
because the uneducated person doesn't know what he doesn't know.
mm.
The educated man understands what he had to learn and knows how much more there is for him to learn. You see, the more you have a respect for a thing, the better you're able to grasp it, to embrace it, and to cultivate it. So, again, for any youths or any young parents, don't get discouraged and think that, well, because I work a blue collar job and I come from people who worked with their hands their whole life, we can't develop a culture of education in our home. Yes, we can. Let's build little bitty libraries for our children.
No.
If we can, let's get them little bitty bookshelves and buy them little bitty books one at a time. Help them build a library. Take them to the library. See, I currently live in Central Virginia now. Again, I grew up in North Jersey, so things are different for me here, where I was able to walk back and forth to school every day, which allowed me to go to the library. I can understand how my children can't do that because they all have to be bused. Their schools, they aren't within walking distance, neither is the library. So, as parents, we have to cultivate that part in our children. Depending on your area, you may be like me in a place like the South where everything is spread out. So, you have to put the children in the minivan with you and go to the libraries. You're going to have to put the children in the minivans and go to the museums on days when they are free. I'm going to give a clue. And this one I know from Florida, my time in Florida. If you have 3 children at home, even if they're in the public school, you can still get a homeschool co op discount for tickets at your local zoos, at amusement parks, and just go out and explore the world with your children. We don't have the same access to trains and buses as I did growing up, but drive your family to your closest downtown area, pay for parking, get on the bus and travel that day, and learn the city.
Mm.
Then you take advantage of the Google when you see a statue or you see an old building and find out what that building is instead of seeing someone like yourself and deciding if she can do it, I can do it. Let me see what I can find on Google. No, have a respect for the professionals, have a respect for those who put in the constant time and constant effort because it's not easy.
The gems, the gems. Masterclass once again in respecting. That's what we call respect
Yeah.
the process. Okay, because that's what we were hearing throughout all of the gems and the information that you gave into your journey of becoming an author, and in particular focusing on our youth. And I love how you started off with your own 5 children and understanding that everything that we do should start within our home first. As they say, charity begins at home, right? So anything, any impact that we intend to make, we should first start with our beloved ones, our children, if you have children, or if not, your family, So you are just literally, you're reminding us as a community about the communal mindset. That it just makes me think about, just like we said, how you said earlier, it takes a village, that African concept, right? Of that community mindset. We want to take care of each other, respecting the process, loving to learn. All of these things are just, absolutely wonderful. And they are an integral part of us developing that culture of literacy and wanting to see our community literate and loving to read. I would love for you to now talk about your books in terms of, obviously you have Islamic children's books, so that is the genre. But if you would tell everybody how many books you have authored, and also just share like a couple of the books that maybe are your favorite, or the books that really that you really gravitated to in terms of what you wanted to write for our community.
Okay. Well, let's see. I think my ultimate favorite has to be the first one that was completed,
Okay.
which was Story Time, Sharing is Caring. Um, Alhamdulillah, when I wrote that one, I actually made a cartoon for it. If we remember, for us, LeVar Burton had a television show called Reading Rainbow. And again, I mentioned that I was deemed the problem solver. So I just decided to mimic the process of Reading Rainbow, which was instead of making a moving cartoon, I just utilized the images from the book in order to tell the story on YouTube. So going from there, I would say that my larger goal and aspiration is we had a thing in school called the scholastic.
Uh-huh. Those the little, like, I think it's called Scholastic. Yeah. Ah, man, I know what you're talking about. They're like, I want to call them like little
Say it again.
pamphlets, kind of. It was. It's like a newsletter, maybe.
Yeah, it was almost like
Mm-hmm.
two 8 by 11 sheets
Yeah.
folded in half.
Yep. Yes.
And they sold books, they sold posters,
Yep.
stickers. And for me, that was intriguing. So that's my goal. Currently, I have, I believe, 22 books. My goal is to have enough books to where I can establish my own scholastic folder
Yeah.
and ship them out to different communities
Mm-hmm.
to allow children to be able to sift through them. Because for me, what they came out every quarter, So every marking period,
Okay.
that was the highlight. That was, let me get two of those.
Hmm.
And I would beg, I would cry, I would save my money to at least get a minimum of one poster and two books. So, in order to achieve that dream, so far with the 22 books that I have, I tried to orchestrate some for the little guys, elementary school and under,
Hmm.
books that they can practice reading themselves, but have them read to them as well by their parents, so that there can be a cohesion there. The second group of books are for YAs, young adults. And here's a plug. If you get a chance, go online. It's called the Islamic Library Association.
Yes.
What they're doing is they're working on becoming a policymaker for libraries in the United States. A lot of people don't understand that all of the libraries are controlled by certain amenities in the US government. So the policies that goes into your public libraries also go into the libraries in the prison system. They're all covered. So one of the things when I spoke with them that they liked and were asking if I would consider producing more on that tangent was for the boys.
Hmm.
Says out of all the reading groups, it's the YA male who's underrepresented. So that will be my second book, or rather my number two favorite here, Captain Muawiyah and the River of Secrets, because that book I tried to write for the young adult, the preteen and the teen boy, some adventure. Because I did do a lot of reading, but I played too. I played outside. I pretended to be a pirate. I used my imagination. Listen, the pallets that they ship things on? Me and a group of friends, we took a pallet and decided that we were going to be Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. Needless to say, even though the pallet was wood, it sunk to the bottom of the Rawway River. But when they mentioned that to me, because I had completed that book before I spoke with them, it made me sit back and reflect and say, you know what? They're right. So I am working now on a part two of Captain Muawiyah and the River of Secrets. I believe, here's a spoiler, is going to be Captain Muawiyah and the Lake of Shadows. But I also have a third group of books that I try to write. One right now, because we're trying to reach. Well, let me back up a little bit. One of my goals in writing these books is we're starting to understand now as a society that representation is everything. That we respond better when we can see ourselves in something. So when we can read books or watch movies or see television shows where we're the heroes, where we're the good guys, that resonates and it helps. So every book that I do, I try to make sure that we see ourselves in these books. African Americans, Muslims, Americans. We get to have that representation, to have that sort of pride. Like I said, we were reading Mark Twain books and hey, I'm Tom Sawyer today. No, you're not.
Right.
You was Tom Sawyer yesterday. You'd be Huck Finn today. So I want to give my 15-year-old, my 13-year-old the opportunity to say, hey, I'm Captain Muawiyah today.
Mhm.
And you gonna be First Mate Saad or Master at Arms Niadi. I'm giving spoilers.
Okay.
So getting back to the third group that I try to write, an underrepresented group are the refugees.
Mm,
So I spoke with the organization, and right now I have two completed, and I'm trying to complete two more to represent those children that are going through a tough time.
mm,
You know, I couldn't imagine what it would be like.
mm,
The home I grew up with, or rather, I grew up in,
yeah,
it no longer exists because it burnt down.
mm,
And that kind of affected me when I first seen it. Like, oh man, the house is gone. Because anytime you go through the old neighborhood, you want to see all the things that you remember.
yeah,
I couldn't begin to imagine not just my home missing, but that entire neighborhood missing and never being able to go back and see that again, of having to learn a new language, of being around people who, because we all have biases, right? It's just is what we do with those biases,
mhm,
right? And being around people who look at you strangely just because you're different. You're not one of us. So to represent the refugee children, and I have a book of short stories on the prison experience in America for Muslims called Hijra House, the fight against recidivism. And I'm also working on a part two of that. But that book, it comes about again because I spent 10 years as a Muslim chaplain in Florida on the state side. My final year, I became eligible to go to the federal prisons. One of the federal prisons in Florida being Coleman. So there were a lot of things that I saw that a lot of people don't think of. There are even, let's say, there are subgroups within our communities who they don't believe that jail is a problem for them.
mm,
But while I was going for those 10 years,
mm,
I saw inmates not who looked just like us from the inner cities.
mm,
I saw people from the subcontinent. I saw people from the Middle East, North Africa, people who we don't relate to or think of as inmates in the prison system, but they're there and they have stories too. But I think them being ignored, it exacerbates the problem. So again, I'm trying to give a voice to us first, but there are others out there who they need some representation and a voice to be heard, and they need to feel that extra something with being acknowledged because there's something about being acknowledged. And I'll give a small anecdote. Hopefully, everyone can understand what I mean. Growing up for us culturally, your most important day of school was first day of school.
mm, mm, yeah.
So on the first day of school, you wore your brand new outfit. Whatever you bought throughout the summer or for school shopping, it was that best outfit you wore.
Oh,
And what can turn that best day into the worst day
mm,
is not being acknowledged for that outfit.
mm,
Let you go back home and nobody said anything about what you had on.
mm,
Tell me that my book bag was fly that day and I'm all right. But tell me that my whole outfit was looking good. I'm walking on sunshine on my way to the library because I was a nerd.
that's all right.
So that same bit of acknowledgement
Mm,
is the same here with books. Imagine you being from a subgroup in this society and you go to the library, but you never see you.
mm,
You see everybody else. All the stories you read, you have to close your eyes really hard to put you into that story. But then you find yourself in a circumstance to where now you go to those libraries, not only do you see you there, you see you over there, you see you over there. It changes something. So that's my goal. So be on the lookout for the Trade Win Books scholarship pamphlet coming to your local community, inshallah.
Oh, man. As you were talking, I was thinking about your bio, and I said it makes sense that the adjective, well, a couple of the adjectives to describe you as a stoic and a deep thinker, because that's what, to me, as I'm just listening to you, just how you go about your process and how, again, the care that you take in terms of writing these books and the intentionality and being able to see, okay, this group over here needs to be amplified. This voice over here needs to be heard. um, that is an amazing characteristic to be somebody who is a deep thinker, and then also too, you're reminding us about our humanity, right? You know, everything that you said. Again, we you want to be acknowledged. That's why you use the anecdote, the example of the first day of school. You you want to be seen, you know, and it because you are looking like, hey, I'm here, I matter, and if no one is paying you any attention, you know, that does something, or it can do something to your self-esteem. Hopefully, that's just something that'll be a part-time thing. Because again, when you have that grounding from your parents, from your family who nurtures you, even when you do come across people who don't acknowledge you, hopefully you'll be reminded, well, I have a family who acknowledges me. I have a family who loves me, who loves on me. But again, we all want to be seen and represented. So that this right here is just amazing. I love what you're doing. I'll have a couple of more questions, to ask you before we get ready to wrap up. Now, this question is it's along the selfish line. I'm just, real quick, because my intention is to become a children's author. I'm a co-author of a book. Shout out to my dear Sister Asia Nasir, the founder of Jessica Cares, and she had put together an author's master's class for myself and 8 other amazing women, and we came together to write the book Healed, Empowered, Resilient. Just bring it up real quick, bam, okay? And each of us have our own chapter. So this was my first author's experience, okay? But now I want to go into the children's author space. And you, to me, you're the perfect person to talk to about that, okay? So I just want to get like just a little snippet, if you will, condensed version of how do you go about starting to write your children's books?
For me, it starts from the initial idea. I have an initial concept of the story. And from that initial concept, you elaborate. So if it was little Abdullah goes to the playground for the first time on his own, well, you start with that concept and then you just build, even if it's because I'm looking at a sticky note that just fell, even if it's sticky notes, you write what he's going to do in the story. But for me, the most important part is, I guess, for television and movies, they call it method acting. Get into the mind of who you're writing for, because you're not, even though you're writing the story,
Mm-hmm.
you're telling the story of the character you're developing. So it's really their story through you. So get into their mindset, become them as you write things out. use that imagination and imagine yourself being that individual. And how would that individual respond? How would that individual think? Because we're old, we have a lot of experience. So if we wrote the book through the lens of ourselves, that story is not going to relate to a 10-year-old because the 10-year-old just isn't there yet. Become that 10-year-old. And when you read the book later, or like me, fortunate, uh, I have a wife who scours through everything for me. Even when I hate it, I appreciate it. Right?
You admit it. Shout out to her.
And I also have children who inspire me as well. I get to watch them. And with if you're a parent, you know that in all your children, the same way you can look at a child and find something in that child that's you, whether it's they have your nose, that one has your eyes, that one has your lips, the same with the personalities. That one gets angry like I do, or that one is more patient like I used to be, or that one loves food. That one has a keen ear. So I actually use my children as vessels in telling the story. Alhamdulillah, I full disclosure, I have 3 children who are special needs. So that also helps because I would hope that, and my wife, she's encouraging me to include them more in the actual storytelling, but hopefully it will help me leave a legacy for them to where these books will be relatable. I actually have a story featured on Sound Vision. If you were to type up Abu Hudhayfah Edwards, it's called I'm the Same as You, I'm Just Different. And it's about a young boy who is neurodivergent. And in essence, he's the same as every other child, but he's different, which is really no different from the children who aren't neurodivergent. They're just different in a different way. So, the best advice I can give as an author is keep your ideas because a few of the 22 books that I have, a few of them, I've been holding on to those ideas for over a decade. But we have these little smart devices. So I know on my iPhone, there's an app called Notes. So I'm able to type in some notes. And it helps for when I came back later. It's like, oh, hey, I can write this story because I have the illustration part covered. I can tell this story now. So never give up on a story. Another spoiler alert, if I can. Yeah. I'm working on a book that my wife is going to kill me if I don't finish it soon. It's called Tech Powers. And Tech Powers, he's a superhero without any of those magical powers. His magical power is being a human, being able to assess problems and come up with solutions. And I'm not saying it's going to take another 10 years, but it may. But as long as you keep those notes, you go back every time you can when a new idea comes into your mind, put it down in that folder or wherever you're keeping it to expand in that story. And then, as people will say, as the inspiration comes, you'll start putting things together. And with all the technology now, you can use Grammarly to help you with your grammatical errors. And they also have tools in there. They won't change it for you, but they'll give you a grade on how your story was written. Like if you deviated from the main character, you're going to get a 55 out of 100. And it'll tell you, hey, you started with Abu Hudhayfah, but where did this story go?
Right.
It it helps you refine it without having to find editors. And like I said, alhamdulillah, I'm fortunate enough to have the cyber tools to help, as well as a wife who won't let it go.
Hey, this, I'm telling you, oh my God, this is one of the most fascinating conversations that I've ever had on the podcast. I really, because just your approach, again, it just shows your that science mind that you have, that ingenuitive mind, the problem solver. Which, by the way, shout out to my entrepreneurs out there, because that's what, that's what we do. We solve problems, and you are educating us. And for those who are listening who already know this, re-educating us on the idea, and remember, being intentional about being a problem solver. And so again, I definitely appreciate you. My last couple of things I want to ask you, because I have to give a shout out to, was when you said Islamic Library Association,
Mhm.
Kalisa Harris, my
Yes.
girl. She's been on my podcast as well. So, I'll shout out to
Inshallah.
her. She is awesome, doing amazing things. So I'm like, soon when you said it, I said, I got to make sure I say her name in there, because she's the founder, of the Islamic Library Association. And I'm super proud of her and her work and what she's doing. Um, yes, go ahead. You want to say
No, I was just going to mention, I think of her as the matriarch of what we're trying to do,
something?
because with her her success
Yep,
is going to matriculate down to us.
yep.
So if you are an aspiring author, visit and figure out your niche with her to help her, because if her agenda becomes successful, that means that the books that you write yourselves will easily or more easily be attainable by local libraries, within the penal systems, everywhere. That will help our books get into those libraries, and not just public libraries, school libraries, elementary school libraries, middle school libraries, high school libraries. It will help. So just as I mentioned earlier, my selfishness for my children was really the root. Be selfish here too,
Mm-hmm.
and know that in order to help yourself, by helping her, you help yourself immensely.
Mm, love it. I love it. That's a mic drop on that part. I wanted to, because you have a publishing company, and what made you decide to start your own publishing company, as opposed to saying, hey, look, let me try to get my work out into another publishing company that's already established.
Alhamdulillah, I would think two things went into that. There was a student of knowledge who we worked with to help him get his message out. Um, he developed, and I won't mention it because he never allowed the book to get published, but I created a book for him. MashaAllah. I believe that every Muslim child living here should have access to it, because if by learning this aspect of basic fiqh, jurisprudence, law, that gives every child a heads up in learning Islam. But when he decided that he didn't want to move any further, I've already constructed the book for him. I
Mm,
was ready to go to outside publishers. So I said, you know what? I'm going to write myself, which is how I came up with sharing is caring. And I guess it would be an intimidation or a fear. I didn't think that I would be able to get Publishers Clearinghouse or, the different larger companies to publish. And even if they did, being an unknown, trying to reach an audience that they probably didn't care about,
Mm,
how would that work? Would I be paying them each time they sold a book?
mm,
So I realized I knew the process. And again, remember, I had that hyper focus. I can't get off of a thing until I'm satisfied that I figured out what I need to figure out. So respecting the process, that's when I went on Google, YouTube, uh, paid for those small courses on Udemy in order to hone my skills and talents to put a book together. And during that time period, it was known as, well, I'll put it this way, KDP,
mm,
which is Amazon Kindle Publishing.
mhm,
Because of the technology we had, when I saw that, because maybe had it been 1998,
mm,
story time sharing is caring would have never come into existence.
mm.
But during that process, I saw the KDP,
Right.
and I think I had to put my application in twice. It
Mm,
may have got kicked out the first time.
okay.
But once I did that, I said, well, alhamdulillah, this won't too hard.
Mm,
Because even through that first process, once I got in, the book, due to the configuration, it got rejected at least a half dozen times
mm,
before it got approved.
okay.
But once it happened, I'm like, hey, we're living in a different time now. Why would someone who's, I can understand if you're already Stephen King, everyone's chasing you. Everyone wants your work, but I'm no Stephen King. So why wouldn't I do my best to try to self-publish? So I self-published myself, and I helped others publish themselves. So my publishing, it isn't a major like Salam Publishers. It's not a major publishing company. I use the self-publishing methods in order to get my message and my story out there to the masses.
Mhm.
So it's, like I said, we're living in a time to where some of the old techniques and methods,
Yeah.
those walls and barriers have been broken down,
Yep.
giving you the opportunity. Because anyone who watches sports, they will understand this. As great as Michael Jordan was, there was a basketball player during Michael Jordan's time who was better than Michael Jordan, but never made it to the league.
Mm,
So you can say the same thing through every aspect because we're human.
right.
Nepotism plays a part in the vast majority of our society.
Mm,
So there are times where you can be the most talented, but you don't have the right connections. You don't have the right voice speaking on your behalf. You're going to get looked over.
mhm,
But we're in a circumstance now to where so much is set up for an individual. You just have to respect the craft and work at it and not give up on it.
mhm. That is excellent advice. Excellent advice. And this is why I always remind my audience when listening to Real Reading Talk, you need to make sure that you have your notebooks, your pens, because the gems, the jewels, the nuggets, whatever you want to call it, is always being dropped. That's why I'm intentional about the particular guests that I asked to be a part of the show. because again, I want to make sure that anybody, when they're, looking for a good podcast or something they want to listen to or watch and glean knowledge from, I want this to be one of the most out there in terms of respected podcasts, especially in this literacy space. So I want you to leave us with just three tips. I always ask this of my guests. And you've dropped all types of gems, so it might even be something repetitive, things you've already said. But just to, cap it off, three tips that you can give to, our parents and caregivers out there who are trying to get their kids into reading. And they feel like, hey, I'm trying everything, especially nowadays. I mean, I think it was definitely obviously a lot more easier because we didn't have the devices, right? I mean, of course, we had vices, we had things that could impede you, but we didn't have these just at our
Mhm.
disposal, right? But we're dealing with that now, So can you just give us three things that would be helpful for parents?
Let's see. I would say the first thing will be, as I mentioned, having a respect for the process. We have to understand that technology constantly grows. So the younger generation, no matter what generation you're from, they're going to have an advantage. So even in this technology, if you're a parent, you have to think of yourself as a digital immigrant. You are immigrating over to the technology. Your children are digital natives. They were born into that technological society that they're living in. It's native to them. It's secondhand to them. So there's certain things. If we remember when we were younger, we probably wanted to listen to the radio while we were doing our homework. We knew that we can do it, but our parents didn't do that. So turn that radio off. These children being digital natives, now you still have to monitor and pay attention,
Mm-hmm.
but them being digital natives, I have one child who he'll have an iPad open, an iPhone open, a MacBook Pro open, the television with YouTube open. But if I ask him to pause everything and tell me what was happening on each device, somehow he's soaking it up. And for me, that reminds me that my parents couldn't understand how I can concentrate on this book and have the radio going at the same time, but I could. So, him especially being able to explain to me that he was able to track and keep hold of everything, respect it. I'm not trying to bring him back because he needs to move forward with technology. So, first advice, keep the mindset that you are a digital immigrant and your children are the digital natives. The second is you have to be you. I know a lot of times we get caught up in watching people in their podcast and trying to be them. Being them may not work for you because it's going to come off disingenuous. You're not going to be able to convey your true feelings and ideas because you're really conveying someone else's ideas, or you're using a technique that just doesn't work for you, it worked for them. Keep in mind that you still have to be you. You just have to be a better you in how you're going to interact with your children and what you're going to do. So, as I mentioned, on my mother's side, they would grab you by the lips, enunciate, articulate, stop mumbling.
Mm-hmm.
That was them. It worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the other side, they would have me read everything for them,
Mm.
whether it was newspapers, whether it was mail, but that worked for them. And lastly, I would say as a parent, be involved, and sometimes it's okay to be okay. I may get a little pushback for this, but I want my children to be the best,
Mhm.
but I'm okay with them doing their best. As long as I can see the effort being put forth and that's their best effort, I can accept that.
Mhm.
And I would rather them work hard and come in third place, fifth place, than for them to skate off of natural talent and get first place
Mm.
because they won't believe that they'll be, there's no reason to work. It's coming too easy.
Mhm. Mhm.
So try to reward your children heavily when you see them giving their best,
Mhm.
not just the results. Of course, if they make the honor roll, embrace that, reward that. But if you see that they spent the entire semester working hard,
Mhm.
but their best only got them a C, reward that effort as well. And remember this, parents, there are only two people on the planet who wants to see a person surpass them and do better than them. That's your father, mother is included in that, and your teacher. Your boss doesn't want to see you do better than them.
Mm.
Your employer doesn't want to see you make more money than them. But your teacher's goal is to what? Get you to the next level.
Mm.
Your parent wants you to be better than them. And knowing that, continue to be that parent. Don't be the boss. Don't be the boss that wants your children to forever be in your shadow.
Mm.
Be the one that wants to see your child surpass you, be better than you. I want people to talk about my children more than they will ever talk about me.
My drop. Go ahead. I love it. All of this, all of it. This was amazing. Brother Abu Hudhayfah, you brought it, and we certainly appreciate you. And you need to tell everybody where they can find you out in them social media streets and your website to where they can purchase your books.
Okay, website, we're low on funding. So we're still trying to figure out a way to get together a website.
Okay.
But in the interim, if you were to do a Google search on Abu Hudhayfah Edwards,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to bring you everything.
Okay.
If you were to do Trade Winds books, it will bring you everything.
Mm. Okay.
We have titles on Amazon. So you can go on Amazon, type in Abu Hudhayfah Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
We have titles on Barnes and Nobles. So you can go to Barnes and Nobles and type in Abu Hudhayfah Edwards. And there's a great one I found. If you're going to write for small children
Yeah.
and you want to self-publish, try Bookymon. They're a self-publishing company, and I find them offering the greater ease in producing books for younger children. And again, on there, you can type in the name. Uh, you'll have your own personal store within their website to
Mm.
where everyone can see everything that's ready for sale for you. I believe they even have a premiere or coming soon section where you can see books that aren't quite published yet, but that you may be working on if the author wanted to make that public instead of keeping it private.
Mm.
So in the interim, Abu Hudhayfah Edwards on Google, and you'll find everything, even those things that I may not want you to find. No,
Okay.
I want you to find everything.
And can you and the social media? Because you know IG. What's your IG handle?
Uh, can you? I believe that the IG handle. If you give me 1 second,
Yeah, I'm going on there actually again too. So I mean, she got it. Let's see.
because for the most part, it's either going to be Trade Books
Okay.
or Abu Hudhayfah Edwards.
Okay. So the one
Islam Publishers.
that's what I was gonna say. The one I'm looking at. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. Awesome. That is amazing. I appreciate you, and of course, what I'm gonna have you do is you'll just, the links to make it easy when everything gets posted. And I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work, and especially too when you said that shout out to all of your children, but in particular, like you said, your three of your children special needs, because my son Musa, he's autistic. And so, it's like I can definitely relate in terms of, you have those kids with special needs. You definitely want to make sure that they are being represented. And so we're definitely looking forward to you getting books out there to represent that population even more so. So again, thank you. Jazakallah khairan.
Why, yeah.
Shukran. Appreciate you all that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so, again, like I said, everybody, this has been another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, we discuss the real systemic issues at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in our Black and underserved communities and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. Thank you all again. And remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace. Right, everybody. So, once again, I thank you all for listening to that spectacular, fascinating conversation that I had with my phenomenal guest, Mr. Abu Hudhayfah Edwards. All right. I hope you guys was able to get a lot of gems and nuggets because he was dropping them. Okay. And also, just some housekeeping. Just want to remind you guys if you are interested in some tutoring, reading tutoring, basic writing skills for your young ones, okay? Or if you need a jump start in helping your child learn how to read, go to my website, abclearntutoring.com, and click on the free reading assessment today. All right. And I'm also the founder and executive director of ABC Read, and our mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities here in Cleveland, throughout Northeast Ohio and West Side as well. We've been doing this for over 10 years, given close to 9,000 books, 8,775 to be exact, and counting. And so if you guys are interested in helping us continue to service the community and helping to combat the high levels of illiteracy in our community, please go to abcread.org. And please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Reading is Freedom, because remember, literacy is always and has been always linked to our liberation. And check out the book. Once again, yes, I'm a co-author, Healed, Empowered, Resilient. Myself and 9 amazing dope sisters have come together to write our chapter in this book, where we talk about how we have overcame adversity. All right. And we still pushing through always. But this right here is a reminder and a testament to how we did not let our setbacks keep us from making comebacks. All right. And if you need a jump start, you need a reminder, please go to Amazon to purchase our book. Okay. Healed, Empowered, Resilient. All right. And then I love to share with you guys the books that I am reading currently or have finished reading. I finished reading The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, an excellent book. I also finished reading the book Undiagnosed. It's pertaining to a brother. His name is Amir Baraka. He talks about his journey dealing with dyslexia. I highly recommend that book. And the book that I'm currently reading now is Self Taught. I forget the author's name, but that book just talks about the history of Black people when it came to them learning how to read post enslavement and the dedication that our ancestors have always showed, the commitment as it pertains to wanting to be literate and wanting to learn. That was always a part of our ancestors' DNA. And I love how the sister who wrote that book, how she goes through the different aspects in showing that documented history of our people saying, hey, look, yeah, we were enslaved. However, we always knew that we had a right to read, a right to learn. So with that being said, I thank you all again for listening. And remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day, and leaving you with the words of Walter Dean Myers, which is reading is not optional. All right. So you all take care. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace.